So for anyone who hasn't seen The Bad Guys is DreamWorks' latest feature at the time of this recording, and it is superb. Probably one of my top 5 animated features of all time. I absolutely adore it. It's got everything that I love. It is just beautiful to look at. The story is great. The music is great. Everything about it is great. Great cinematography, great writing. It's beautiful. Today we're going to be focusing on a few different things. Like I could talk about this show all weekend. We could just go over again the cinematography, the color choices, the character designs, the character arcs and character developments, all of that stuff. We could go on all day. Today I want to focus mostly on posing, timing and spacing, and the exaggeration that they do in this film, because it is amazing. It is beautiful. And it's one of those things that gives it that very unique style that I haven't really seen in any other films. I would say it comes very close to a Spider-Verse style and kind of a Hotel Transylvania style, while being its own thing. It's not either of those. It's its own style, which I find very awesome that they did that. So let's take a look at this first shot right here. And let's see, I'll keep the music on for now. And we'll just take a look at this shot right here. And yeah, I believe Drew Adams did work on this, as well as Chad Farron. If you guys jump into their Q&As, say thank you for me, because this show is awesome. So let's take a look at this first shot. It's going to be a very simple one, very short, a nice place to start. So we've just got characters running into a car and taking off. And it is beautiful. It is amazing. This is a, 91 frame shot. 91 frames. This is shorter than most Animation Mentor assignments once you get into body mechanics and all of that stuff. But look at how much life and character there is in this. Not only in the characters, but in the car. Is this streaming or coming to theaters? It should be out on digital release now. So it should be streaming. So definitely, if you haven't seen it, take a look. What service is it on? No, I'm forgetting. I was watching Obi-Wan Kenobi yesterday, so I've got Disney Plus stuck on my brain. I think it's Netflix. I could be wrong. And Wookie, hello! I'm glad to be back. So, we've got all of this stuff. Like I was saying, everything in this has character. Even the car, the way it takes off and spins around the corner, it's amazing. Now, what makes it feel so good? What makes it feel so interesting? Well, like I said, it's a few different things. The main ones are clear posing and appeal. I wrote this down just so I don't forget. Clear posing and appeal. The poses on all of these characters, when you frame through it, there's almost never an unappealing pose. Everything is appealing on every single frame. It is clear. It is pushed and exaggerated. There is beautiful asymmetry in the way they do things. And we're going to talk about this in another scene later on. You're not going to see it too much in this scene. But they really work on avoiding twinning. When things just happen symmetrically on both sides and the face is symmetrical, everything's even. They're always pushing the asymmetry to make things feel more appealing. Exaggeration. They don't just go with a normal pose. They go and push the pose to the extreme. And you see this a lot with the secondary characters in this film. the crowd characters. They are pushed to such a high degree that it becomes entertaining on its own just to watch the side characters. They push the spacing and the timing. Now, timing, of course, we always want to push timing. That's what gives, especially cartoons, that more cartoony feeling. But spacing is where they really push things in this film, where they exaggerate the spacing to such a degree that the motions, it almost feels like it's in stepped mode, but there's still that wonderful appeal of it. And we're going to go into that quite a bit today. They have a good use of holds. They aren't afraid to have a character hold and give us as the audience time to process the moment. This could be in a thought where a character is going to do something and then they pause and think before going into something else, or even in an action so that we can read what is about to happen. And we saw this a little bit in the clip that we just saw. And the other one is solid mechanics and basics. This is body mechanics and the principles of animation, like bouncing balls and like pendulums, all that stuff. Now, technically, I don't need to put this one in because any good animation is going to have that. But the reason I put this in is if you break down a lot of what looks like complex motions in these clips, a lot of it is going to come down to those very core mechanics that you learned in class 1. So especially for anyone of you here in class 1 or maybe class 2, and you're like learning all these things, and especially class 1 is like, what do I need to learn a bouncing ball for? What's that going to help me with later on? I want to do character animation. Everything you learn is going to apply into these more complex shots. So really try to understand those simple moments and understand how they work. So that's going to be the list of main things that we look at today. Let's actually break this down a little bit here. So one of the first things is let's look at holds. I talked about that a little bit. They exaggerate the holds. If you look at this, the most clear holds, there's 2 of them, is right here when the snake goes up in the air and he just holds in the air. Like, look at that. He almost just freezes in the air before coming back down. They're just exaggerating the hang time. Now, what makes this work, and you can see it even on the safe, this big heavy object, and its hang time is even exaggerated. What makes this work is that they are not forgetting the mechanics and the basics, they are just exaggerating them. If you look, let's look at the safe because it's kind of simpler here. And we just kind of track the center of the safe right here, approximately. Right through. And then it comes down, probably right around here. I did every 2 frames. If we look at that spacing here, I messed it up a little bit right there in the middle. But let's get a few more frames in there. Beep. Okay. And turn this on. Look at that arc. It's a bouncing ball. Now you'll notice that it's not a perfect bouncing ball. It's not that perfect arc there. It's kind of a little bit more like that, but it's still a bouncing ball. The other thing is that it keeps moving forward. It never stops and freezes. If we look at the safe here, look at the background in comparison to the safe, and you'll notice that the safe never stops, never freezes. It's always moving forward. They are keeping in mind the mechanics of the world. If you throw something in the air, it can't stop. It can't reverse. It'll just keep moving forward until it lands. But they can exaggerate. They can put that little bit of a moment of a pause. And it's almost, you can almost think of it like putting it in slow motion, where it goes into the air, pause, hold, hits the ground. And it adds this nice clarity where we can just visualize the character see this nice solid pose. He's just kind of in this pose, slightly moving before comes down, and you get this beautiful snaking arc downwards right there. So they're exaggerating the holds, exaggerating the hang time of a bouncing ball, essentially. The next hold that really stands out is right here. Just before he's about to throw the sacks into the car here, he hits this pose right there and just kind of holds that for a few frames. Like, look at how long he just stays in that moment until his legs finally start to move him forward here. So that's around frame 56. When he gets into that initial pose approximately, it's right around here, around 48. That's when he gets into that pose. From there, he's definitely still moving. It's a moving hold. They're working within that pose. But he stays there for 8 frames, just holding that moment before comes into the car right there. Once again, exaggerating the holds so that we have this nice, beautiful contrast between the fast actions and then these moments. I just hit the mic. I hope that didn't come in too clear. I stopped doing the streams for like a week and I forget where my mic is. So they are exaggerating these and it creates this beautiful contrast in the animation. Okay, so that's the holds. And this is something I highly recommend everyone do in their own shots. You don't have to go to this extreme, but pushing and exaggerating your holds, whether it's the hang time of a jump or a change of direction, like they're turning around, even just a thought, it can add a lot of visual contrast. If you don't do that, what ends up happening is characters just kind of keep moving and moving and moving, and they're always just moving. It gets boring very quickly. But if you have a hold and then some movement and then another hold, it creates visual spice. It's more interesting to look at. Okay, now talking about like visual spice, let's look at the posing. The posing in here, once again, is superb. Like I said, you could frame through this and there's no frame that is not appealing. Like, just look at how Wolf comes in right here. Look at that line of action right through that leg right there. The other arm's just pushed way up. Actually, if I look at this here, it looks like this shoulder might actually be dislocated somewhat so that they can get a much clearer silhouette right through there. They are not afraid to push the anatomy to get a clear, beautiful pose, but without making it look broken. It's wonderfully exaggerated. When he lands, it's kind of hard to see here because of the post, but you get that nice reversal in the line there. Beautiful shape right through. Snake, of course, is just beautiful curves and whatnot. They're making sure to add variety to the curve, so he's not just kind of evenly curved like that. You get kind of a little bit tighter here, wider there, tighter here, that space between there and then there, and wider. It's varied and interesting. Wolf goes from this pose right here, we get that reversal, nice kind of straight line right there, so you get that nice downwards motion, that anticipation before he comes back up and then slips right there and falls to the ground. But throughout all of this, like, look at those poses. There's not one that is unappealing or where the silhouette is okay or the pose itself is like meh, it's fine. Every single pose is treated like it could be a poster. And this is one of the biggest things that will differentiate a feature level shot versus a student level shot. A lot of student level shots will have very good key poses, but the poses in between can look very boring sometimes. the hand poses aren't that interesting, or the line of action kind of loses itself as it transitions, or the silhouette just isn't super clear because as they're turning, it just kind of ends up, everything lines up in a very boring way. But with this, every single frame is a painting. And when you're working on animation, that is the goal. Every single frame, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be absolutely clear. We can actually see right here, there's a frame right here where the silhouette of his arm is right over top of his leg. Okay, not the greatest silhouette right there, but it doesn't have to be because it reads clearly either way. So you don't have to make it like absolutely perfect, but it still needs to be beautiful, if that makes sense. So yeah, beautiful poses throughout all of this. Once again, like look at that line of action right through, right from the hand all the way down to the foot. They're making sure that the negative space is interesting. So the knee here compared to the arm, they're not parallel. You get this triangular shape in the middle right there. Even this foot coming down here creates this nice triangular shape right here, if you were to connect that. It really makes this feel dynamic and interesting. The mouth shapes, the face shapes. I'm not going to look too much on this because it's so far away. We're going to look at some face shapes later on. But all of this is just absolutely gorgeous. And they push the pose. Like, look at this right here. This is a straight pose right here. Leg is straight. Everything's straight right there. And then he keeps slipping, and his toes keep reaching all the way through, and they stretch it even more. And Blaze, hey, thank you so much for the sub. Oh, thank you so much. And I'm glad. Thank you for missing me. I did miss being on stream the last week. It's been really hectic, but I'm back. Yay. So yes, posing is amazing. And like I could keep going into what makes these poses amazing, but honestly, I've got a whole bunch of streams on that. It's all the principles of posing. Line of action, contrapposto, twist, asymmetry, all of that good stuff is going in here to make these poses dynamic. So wonderfully done here. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about all of these things kind of as we go through the other shots as well. This is kind of just an introduction to the concepts, is the spacing. And the spacing is probably the thing in this show that I love most. The posing, of course, is astronomically good. Everything in this show is so good. But the spacing is jaw-dropping to me. And what I mean by this is that they don't let the spacing be normal, or what I'll often see with student work, and what I used to do with my student work, is the autotangent spacing, which is just the default spacing that Maya gives us that is slightly tweaked sometimes, or sometimes we don't even tweak it at all. We just leave it as is. There is no autotangent spacing here. There is no default spacing. All the spacing here is pushed to a beautiful degree. Now, an example of this is taking a look at the hand here. As he's going to throw that bag into the car, look at the spacing of that hand. It goes through, holds right up here, starts to come down right through there, and then whoom, in one frame, whoom, already through, and then it just holds, and we get that nice ease in right there before he goes through. That's awesome. So if we turn the spacing on here, we're going to have a whole bunch of other drawings. Let's see, white, of course, is. Let's do blue. If you look at that spacing, it goes up, holds, comes through, and then boom, right through super quickly, and then holds an extreme amount. They are pushing their spacing beautifully. And if you start looking at this, not all the spacing is pushed to this degree, but they do exaggerate almost all of their spacing in some way. Now, again, I'm going to introduce these concepts here, and then we'll look at it in other shots later on. But essentially, if we think of it like a spacing chart, a lot of time when you have your two poses, frame one, end frame, so start, end, when you start to add your in-betweens, Maya or whatever program you're going to animate with is going to put the in-betweens in for you, and it's going to be very even, typically. It's going to ease out, get to the middle, ease in. And Wookie, thanks for the reminder. I go 1 week without streaming and my voice can't take it. To be fair, that might also be 2 hours of sleep. Who knows? What could it be? So the typical spacing. So this is what I normally call typical spacing or default spacing or auto tangent spacing. Is you get the key in the middle, or not a key, I should say, the breakdown in the middle that Maya will put in, and everything just kind of eases evenly like that. Ease out, get to the middle, ease in. And when every action does that, it gets very boring very quickly, and it makes actions, they just don't stand out, because what essentially happens is that we see everything. And that might seem weird. It's like, well, of course we want to see everything. We want to see the whole motion. But if you think about it in terms of more complex motions, let's say a run, for example, I'm going to do this, and I've done this example many times. Many of you have seen this before. If I do this, and you'll notice that there are eases at the extremes here as my hands come up. It slows down a little bit, changes direction, comes back down. But if I do this, nothing stands out. The arms are just going up and down, and it's just constant motion. Or if I do this, it's just constant motion the whole time. Nothing stands out. And when you're animating, that's very easy to do when you have that default spacing, that auto tangent spacing. Instead, we want to push it so that if you're doing a character running or walking, you have extremes and you hold a little bit more. So your character, instead of doing this, would do this. I could have the same timing, but now you can register the extremes and the holds a little bit more, and the middle just goes by faster. I'm skipping through the middle so that I can see the different ends of that motion. If I was doing the hand motion here, it would be this. And you don't have to do it where it's mechanical, where it's like that gets kind of, that goes too far the other way, where now the motion feels unnatural. But if I do it correctly, it's going to just create a rhythm to it. And it creates this flow and this visual spice, I guess you could say, that's fun to look at. So essentially, when you're thinking of your spacing chart, it's exaggerating the eases in and out a little bit more, and then skipping the middle a lot of the time. So something more like that. So eases out really fast, and then a much stronger ease at the end. Or vice versa. You could have more of an ease at the beginning, less at the end. And that's what's happening right here. Once again, let's take a look at this. So he comes up, his hand eases up at the top, holds. We get a little bit of an ease out here. Boom, goes through, eases in right there. And that makes things super dynamic. And you'll see this in almost all the motions to various degrees. Again, that was an extreme example, but even, let's find a good one that's easy to see here. The hand coming down right here. It eases, and then we get that one frame. Let's clear this one out right there. So you can see right here, we get that little bit of an ease right here. It's coming through, and then faster, faster, and then it just hits the ground right there. It could have easily been something like this, where it is speeding up a little bit, but overall it's kind of even and boring. So when you're trying to push your own animations, do try to avoid that default spacing. And this is where good breakdowns come into play. This is not just tweaking a curve. This is going through and putting your poses where you want them to be, really shaping your poses. And sometimes, yes, I will say that tweaking some curves can get you a long way with that, but it's very thoughtful. You need to think of how you want to push this spacing. So yes, beautiful shot. I love this. And there's many more things we could talk about here. Like we could talk about how he stumbles. Like look at the timing of his feet here. How he kicks down on the ground. Once again, look at that spacing. Really high there. Down, hits the ground right there. His feet never glue onto the ground. If you watch this, he's constantly slipping. He's got leather shoes on concrete. He never just sticks to the ground and stays there. His feet slip right here. As he takes a step here, his foot lands, and then it holds for a little bit, and then phoop, it slips back right there. It really helps to sell that physicality of his specific type of shoe right here. And it makes it much more frantic too. Let's see, this exaggerated spacing works better in a cartoon style or also in something more realistic. It works in pretty much anything. It just makes more visual appeal. The biggest thing is how far do you go with it? In more realistic VFX style shots, going this far is not going to look real because the physics no longer work correctly, especially if he's lifting something really heavy or throwing like big bags full of money. It's not going to work that well. But you can still push it to some degree because it's going to add that visual spice to it. It's going to be more interesting than if it was just the basic ease in, ease out. So yeah, definitely worth looking into and exaggerating and pushing in your own shots. I love that fall. What I really like is how you can feel his body kind of start falling here, and then his arm reaches out there. So he starts falling with the body, his hand reaches out, and then catches himself, and you can feel that slow down of the head right here before he hits the ground. So we're in that short little moment, in those few frames, we are feeling the different forces that happen on the character, from the body leading the action to the hand catching up and starting to, I guess, it takes over the lead, and then you feel that weight catch from the arm. It's just a few frames, but all of that is super clear. And I love how he switches the bag super quick into the other hand. Right here, if you watch it at speed, it's easy to miss. Like he's got a bag in both hands, and then suddenly he's got it in only one hand, and he throws it in the car. But it's super clear the whole time because this is way out in silhouette. He's not holding the bags here or just here. He's holding it at arm's length out here, and then swinging the other arm way out. Look at that, how clear that is right here. And then as he reaches up and around, we get this very clear hand out open in silhouette here as he grabs the door. It's super fast overall. Like, look at this. This is only like 2 or 3 frames where we can see that hand right there. But it's enough that we get it when we're watching it at speed. And they're doing that by making sure everything is super clear in silhouette and visually to the audience. And once again, the timing of it, where they hold the moments. Right here, he throws the bag right there, and we get a little bit of a hold right here where the hand was moving very fast, goes into this position here, and then holds a little bit right there for just 2 frames, but we feel that little pause before his hand then comes through super quick there. So we've got this kind of arc this way, and it's going through, and then goes fast right there, holds there before going fast again out there. Very nice. I love this show. So we've taken like half an hour on the first 91 frames of this shot. Let's take a look at another shot here. And if anyone does have questions on any of these, definitely let me know. Or if there's anything specific you want to take a look at on these. So this is the next shot. And let me grab some water here. See, it only takes my throat actually closing up for me to remember that I need to drink water. Is it difficult to manage 2 characters doing action at the same time? Not necessarily. What you want to do when you're in a situation like that, I love this song. When you're doing a situation like that where you got 2 characters in a scene and they're both doing some frantic action, is you need to just be aware of how you're going to lead the audience's eye. So if you have 2 characters in your scene and they're both just doing random things, just being super frantic. If I do this, which hand are you looking at? Can't really focus on either specifically because they're both doing something at the exact same time. So we need to lead the audience's eye, and we can do this by the degree of motion that they're doing. So one character might be doing a lot of stuff while the other one's doing a little bit of stuff. They're still moving, but which one are you going to be looking at? Probably the one that's more frantic. And then as we want to shift the focus, suddenly now this character is doing more and the other one's doing a little less. And now your focus is back on and then over here. And depending on that degree of motion, you can really bring the audience's eye. So I can kind of lead eyes over here and then over here and then over there. And you'll notice that I'm doing this kind of swoop in there. That is another thing that'll help by leading the motion. If I time it right when my motion is kind of going in that direction, it'll kind of throw the audience's attention into that space, if that makes sense. It's a magic trick, what magicians do. It's that lead and follow, making sure that you are having the audience looking at the area you want them to look and not where you don't want them to look. And that's pretty much the trick of multiple characters. Now, let's say you have 3 characters. Suddenly that can change a little bit. And honestly, you can do it with 2 as well, where let's say my head is the 3rd character. I could have 2 characters just doing all sorts of crazy things, running around all over the place. But now the 3rd character is going to be the thing that stands out because they're not moving. They're just standing still and being very stoic as everyone else is just being crazy around them. So we're using that visual contrast to make one thing stand out, and that's what the audience is going to look at. Now, there's a lot of more rules to that, but in general, when you're doing multiple characters in an action scene, that's what's going to be the goal, is directing the eye. So let's actually go back to that other shot here. We've got 2 characters in our scene, and what they do here is we have Snake come in, he jumps, our eyes are on him. As he freezes in the air, we now have Wolf come in and start doing all of this frantic motion, and that's starting to bring our eyes down over here. Now, as Wolf is doing all of this super frantic motion, Snake comes in, but his motion is not that complex. He's honestly just kind of straightening out and going straight down. So our attention still stays on Wolf because his actions are way more chaotic, which leads us right into here. It doesn't mean that we don't see what happens to Snake, but our focus doesn't kind of pop around and it doesn't lose track of what's happening, the important bits. So it's leading the eyes. And let's see, I am an animator. Right now I'm a freelance animator, not working at any specific studio currently. But yeah, I also teach at Animation Mentor, which is an online animation school. And these streams are all, for anyone who's new to these streams are all about kind of sharing the joy of animation and answering questions, kind of doing all sorts of animation related stuff, which is something I like to do. And what did I think about the movie? It's probably one of my top 5 films of all time. I love this. I love this film. It's so good. What's freelance? Does that mean like you just do your own stuff? Freelance, I do also do my own stuff. And hey, Adam Mouth, thank you so much for the sub. Oh, geez, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So freelance means that I work for other studios, but just when they need extra help. So I'll like just jump in when a studio is on crunch, or if someone needs a quick animation on a little something, it's kind of that element. So I'm not working at one specific studio. Like I'm not a Disney animator, for example. I might work for Disney, but then only for like a small project or something like that. So yeah, that's freelance. And I also do my own stuff on when I have some time. And I kind of want to be an animator, but question, is it a well-paying job? It is a decent paying job. I would say if you're trying to go into animation for the money, there's other jobs that you can do that's going to get you a much better paycheck. Animation is a job of passion. It is a very, very difficult job. As anyone here who is an animator knows, it is not easy. Animation never becomes easy. It is always going to be a tough job. But you do it because you love it and because it is a lot of fun. So, yeah, in terms of a well-paying job, yeah, you're going to be well paid. It's not going to make you rich if that's the goal. If you want a much better paying job, being a rigger is going to be much more lucrative. I want to do it because I like it, but at the same time, I don't want to be in financial conflicts. No, like it's going to pay for your bills, definitely. Again, this depends on where you live. For example, animators in Japan are not very well paid. The animation industry in Japan, they do not get paid nearly what they deserve to be paid. If you're in Canada, the United States, you're going to be paid a very decent rate, typically, especially if you're part of a union. Yeah, so you're not going to have to worry about like when your next meal is going to be, kind of thing. So yeah. Now, once again, if you do like the rigging side of it, if that's something you're interested in, that's going to be a much more lucrative job, especially if you're a rigger and an animator. You'll get more money and a lot more job security. Rigging is very hard though. So something to think about. But honestly, if you really love animation, I would go for it. It's a lot of fun. And you get good money from making models and rigging. Modeling, I haven't looked into the prices for that or the salary for that, but rigging, typically that has a really good salary. Again, you're not going to become a millionaire out of it, but you'll be able to live well. Let's see. And if you have any other questions on that, definitely let me know. Let's see. Catching up with the questions. In Maya, having the two characters, the props as the shot you are analyzing, the scene will turn heavy? Not necessarily. If the rigs are well optimized and the scene is well optimized, this would run pretty well on most systems. So the scene we're looking at right here, for example, you've got the car, two characters, the safe, plus the two bags. This shouldn't run that heavy at all. Now, again, that depends on your computer. It depends on the rigs. You could have one rig in your scene that really just is the slowest thing in the world with nothing else turned on. It just bogs down your entire machine. Sometimes you'll have 6 or 7 rigs in a scene and it's lightning fast and doesn't slow down at all. It's just how it was rigged. And this is why a good rigger is very important, because a good rigger will make a rig that doesn't slow things down. So yeah, honestly, the answer is it depends. Ideally, it shouldn't slow it down. If it does slow it down, then the ideal thing is to turn off anything you don't need. So for example, if I was animating this scene, I don't need the dumpster over here. I don't need the sign. I don't need this whole background back there. I would just turn all of that off except for the ground plane and whatnot, so I know where the character is stepping. Everything else could be turned off and unreferenced. Let's see. Which is harder, rigging or animating? Rigging, well, they're different. That's the big thing. Rigging is more technically difficult because you need to know a lot of the technical sides of the program. You need to know blend shapes and constraints and coding a lot of the time, and the node editors and all these different ways of connecting things. It's very technically difficult, and there's an art to it as well, especially with weight painting. Animation is less technically difficult. There's honestly, as animators, you can get away with like knowing 2 tools. Honestly, as an animator, as long as you know how to set a key. I'm trying to think what other things you need to know. Set a key and move a character. That's the only 2 things you need to know. And you can animate. Everything else is just extra. So on the technical side of it, it's very simple. You don't even need to know constraints. If you think about the 2D animators, if I was drawing something, I have no constraints as a 2D animator. I just have to draw the object in the character's hand. So I don't need constraints. As a CG animator, I could animate this whole scene here and not have a single constraint and just animate the bag where I want it to be in the character's hand. It's not necessary. It's just something that'll help if you do want to learn about it, and ideally you should. Whereas a rigger, you need to know about it. If you don't, you're not going to have a job because no one's going to be able to use your rigs. So it is, as an animator, is much less technically difficult, but artistically it's much more difficult because every single scene is going to be a new challenge of trying to figure out what the heck you're going to do to make this interesting and just make it stand out. So as an animator, you never reach a point where it's like, okay, I've got this. From now on, I just have to, it's going to be easy. No problem. It's always going to be a struggle. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I actually kind of like that because it means every job is new and interesting and fun. But it also means that it's very tiring and it's a lot of work. So different elements. Let's see. What are my top 5 films? I'll have to think about that. It depends on like if you're talking about like films in general, animated films, all of those. I'll have to think about that one to make sure I have a proper list, not just the first 5 that come to mind. Let's see. How do people make the models look like CGI? Like I've seen modeling fans, and they look like an in-game model. So to make models look realistic or simplified or different, it's really just the amount of exaggeration you do and the amount of simplifying you do. It's kind of like art. You could draw something, and I'm going to try to draw something. I'm not a very good artist. Well, let's do an eye, for example. So I could do an eye and try to make it super realistic. So we've got like the thickness of the eyelid there. Got to get all the details in here. And I'm doing this in a program that's not really made for like fine drawing. Too big. So we can put in all the details in here. Get the shadows in there. Get the brow. We could get everything in there, even that little corner bit there. Start to get some lighting in here. All of this detail into the eye. Or we could just do this. Whoop. Like that. It's still an eye, but it's much simpler. Or you could even go simpler, and let's say here's the face. You just go bip, bip. Still eyes. So the same applies for CGI. At what point does it make, like for this character, for example, are they a realistic wolf versus a CG wolf versus a video game style wolf? It's how simplified it is and how exaggerated it is. Are we, like the eyes on this wolf, they're huge. A wolf's eyes aren't that big. The same thing with like CG characters. Like if you look at Disney characters, their eyes are huge compared to real eyes on a real head. So it's exaggerating the size, the proportions of things. So yeah, a lot of it is just that element when you're making a CG model. Or honestly, in all art. So yeah. Let's see, I think I got all the questions there. Let's see. Yeah, so I hope that answered your question. If not, definitely let me know. So let's actually go to the next shot here, and we'll play through this one. This is one of my favorite shots in the film. Once again, no spoilers here, so if you haven't seen this film, don't worry about anything. Most of these you can kind of see bits and pieces in the trailer anyway, if you've seen the trailer. But we've got this shot here, and just this beginning shot I absolutely adore. And oh, it's buffering. Let me refresh here. Okay, so there we go, now it's loading. So we've got that nice jump right there, very beautiful. And then the introduction of this character. I love this character. She is amazing. I'll let this play through. There's a lot of different areas we could talk about on here, but I'm going to focus on a few different ones. I say that and I'm just watch. I'm going to get all like, I love this bit. I love this film. It's so good. Okay. So there's a lot to talk about in all of this that we just saw. A lot of it is pretty much everything that I talked about in that first shot, and is that the stuff that I talked about in that list before. So clear posing and appeal, asymmetry, exaggeration, pushed spacing and timing, good use of holds, and then solid mechanics and basics. That's everything here. So for example, when the card jumps up here, they exaggerate that hold. Look at how long it's staying up in the air here. Just holds up in the air. Boom. Look at that. That's spacing. Once again, exaggerating that spacing. If we look at, we'll just kind of track the headlight here. It comes down, and then suddenly, boom, right down there. Look at that. They didn't have to go that hard, but they did. And it makes it just so much more visually interesting as it goes up. Even at the beginning here, look how far they exaggerate that spacing right through there. Fast, it holds right through this whole section here before boom, right back down. And that goes for all the other cars afterwards. As it goes up, look at the symmetry of the car. They are not trying to keep that car like what would normally happen. You've got the car here and the wheels go straight down. The wheels are coming in. That shouldn't really happen. That would be the axle bending, but it makes a much more appealing shape. And it creates this kind of asymmetrical feeling to the car where we're not just seeing these perpendicular lines where you got that line here, line. It just makes things more visually appealing right through all of this. And it also makes a bigger contrast when the car lands because suddenly this tire here, they're pointed outwards. Instead of just staying straight and kind of bouncing, they turn inwards and then poof, come out before straightening out here. So by bringing those wheels in, not only do you make it more visually appealing when it's in the air, you add more visual appeal and contrast when it lands. That's awesome. That is just really cool. I love how it lands and then you get that little swerve right through here. This is something, kind of a little tangent here. For anyone who's new to these streams, be prepared for lots of tangents. I can't stay on one topic at all for any length of time. But when you're having a character, or in this case a car, crossing across the scene, try not to have them go over a perfectly straight path. So for example, if we were to imagine the car coming through here and it goes over and then comes through here, it's just this perfectly straight line going down. Instead, as they go, they swerve through and there's all of this imperfection. The same thing when we're walking through a scene. Let's say you had a character here on the side there, walking down the sidewalk. Instead of just having them walk in a straight line, try to find a way to have them adjust their path slightly. Maybe they're walking over here and, gotta walk around this person over there. You adjust the path and it makes the characters much more dynamic. It is not always the case, but it does help quite a bit in making characters less boring. Now, once again, look at all this. Every one of these cars, beautiful lines into the wheels. The timing and spacing of all of these cars, they're not just going up and then down together. You're getting all of them hitting at different times. The cops on the sides. This is going to be something I'll talk about a little bit. I love this one, just on the roof. The secondary cast in this film is amazing to watch because every one of them goes from like 0 to 100% on their posing. And we'll talk about that in a scene later on when it's a little bit more visually apparent. But I just love it. It's so good. Now, one thing I also love about this shot, and this is just something I would recommend playing around with in your own work, is playing around with camera angles. So, or not camera angles. In this case, it's the camera lens length. This shot has a very cool feeling to it. It almost feels 2D. And you've got this middle ground here, the foreground over here. So this would be the foreground. You've got the middle ground there in the middle, and then you have the background back there. And what they're doing here is they're using a very long lens. So I would assume this is probably a 120 to 200 millimeter lens. And essentially what that means is the longer the lens, the flatter objects will look. And it creates this very unique feeling when you get to this length where as the car is driving here, you can see like the size of it over here when it's up at the top of the hill right there is about the same size as it is right here. it hasn't gotten closer. Like if I bring my hand closer to camera, it got a lot bigger very quickly. If I do this, you can see a big difference in my hand size right there, because right now I'm using a pretty short lens length. I think this is about a 35 millimeter that I'm using right now. The longer it is, you wouldn't see that shape or that size difference until the object suddenly becomes much closer to the camera right there, right here. And this is probably cheated, where that car is actually scooted forward much faster when it's out of sight, so that it suddenly becomes much, much closer. Okay. Now this is actually something that I noticed while I was scrubbing through these scenes, kind of looking for what shots I wanted to analyze. And I noticed this right here. See that little, I don't know what it is, like a headlight of some kind? It just disappears. It's only there for one frame and then goes away. And I don't know what it's supposed to be. It's not a headlight, and I don't think it's a mirror. But there's just this little thing that shows up on one frame. I don't know if it was like a rendering bug or something like that. It's just interesting. You don't notice it at full speed. It's a spotlight. It does look like a spotlight, but I'm looking at the car here and I don't see where it would be on the car. Oh, there it is. Did they switch models on the car? Maybe? Because her car doesn't have the spotlights, but the other ones do. They all do have the spotlight. I guess they just, maybe the visibility didn't get turned off quite right, or maybe it was supposed to be left off screen. Interesting. But anyway, that's a fun little thing that I noticed. I love how she takes the corner here and the whole car, like look at the tire just going through, and how the angle once again is way off. You've got this nice hang time, once again, like pushing that hang time. Look at the angle here. You have this nice ease, hold. It starts to come down a little bit right there. Oh, a little bit more. Boom, down. They are pushing that spacing, and then look how low it goes. You feel that whole suspension crash down before it settles. And she's just awesome in there. Okay, so let's go to this shot here. Or I should say this one. So this shot is just beautiful. I love the way she climbs out of this car. It is just wonderful. And what makes it wonderful is, once again, they're pushing the holds. If you think of this motion, it could have easily been done where the character climbs out and they just go out and then up onto the roof. But as you watch her, you'll notice that there's moments where she freezes and pauses. And let's actually... Where's the frame right here? I'm going to slow this down a little bit. Let's do 0.4. So as she's coming out, you'll see she comes out and there's a pause right here. So she ducks down, pause, moves out, pause, moves out again, pause. So she hits that pose right here, and she just holds this for a little bit right there. Comes through. Once the hand's on the roof, right here, holds a little bit, not too much, right there before now she's out, and then once again she holds. Now, this is where new animators will have kind of a misconception, and that is that this is pose-to-pose feeling. So a pose-to-pose feeling in animation... Oh, is the spotlight back? You're right, it is back. Haha. Interesting. That's cool. So the pose to pose feeling in animation typically is a bad thing. Pose to pose is a style of animation where we want to animate the characters, or how to put this, we animate the characters systematically, where we start with one pose over here, we do another pose later on, and then another pose later on. And then once we have all our poses, we then add the in-betweens afterwards. This helps you to figure out how your shot is going to flow, where's it going to go, all that good stuff. It's very nice, especially for planning out a shot. The problem with pose-to-pose animation is if you start getting that pose-to-pose feeling, where a character hits a pose, pauses, moves, pauses, moves, pauses, and you can feel every single pose. That's not good. We do not want that. So this tends to lead student animators to try and continually have things moving. You're never pausing. You're just going, going, going. But that's a whole other problem. We don't want continual motion. There should be pauses. We just don't want the characters to hit a pose and freeze into it all at the same time. They need to naturally come into a stop. So let's see if I can find an example here. So for example, as she comes to a stop right here, you'll notice that as she's about to come to a stop, not everything stops at the exact same time. So for example, the pose to pose feeling would be I'm starting to move, shoot, and everything froze at the exact same moment. I'm moving my arms, whoop, everything stops. That's not natural. When we stop, things kind of overlap, overshoot, settle. Everything's a little different. So your hips might stop first, and then your body a little after, and then your head afterwards. Or your arms might overlap. And we're seeing that here, where as she comes out, her body stops here on this frame, right there. So on 299, her body stops. Her head keeps going and then overshoots back into this pose and basically holds back there, and also creates an anticipation for the next movement. So she goes out, back, out again. So her body stopped, but her head had a little extra motion. Her arms kept moving ever so slightly one frame later. This one right here, you can feel it adjust slightly. So we want these holds, but we have to be very clear on how we have a character come into and out of those holds. This is where your breakdowns come in. Breakdowns are super, super important. We've talked about these a lot on these streams here. So be very conscious of those. Holds are great. We don't want pose to pose holds. So once again, pose to pose holds is when everything just stops and starts at the exact same time. So when she starts to move here again, we feel that head lead the action. Then the whole body comes through. She hits this pose here. And we feel that jaw drag up. And then the whole body, even though her body hits this pose right here, it's kind of stops here on 308. The whole body keeps shifting up because of that momentum and rocks the entire car up. Right there, she holds. Now we break up that hold by leading with the shoulder into the next movement here. At this point, the arm right here, as it's reaching up, they're adding a little hang time, that bouncing ball movement, going up, hold, boom. I wouldn't call this technically a hold, it's more hang time. So it comes up, comes down really fast. Look at that. Once again, right down there. They're pushing their spacing very, very well. I absolutely love this. It's so good. But it creates this beautiful timing and visual rhythm to this scene that would have so easily been lost if the character just kind of popped out their window and put their arm on the top and just went one simple motion, boom, done. Wouldn't have been interesting. Now, another thing I do want to talk about is the lip sync, but we're going to save this for another scene just up ahead. But I just want to point out, look how cool and clear the mouth shapes are. It is so exaggerated. Like you really feel that ooh shape right here compared to the F or V shape right here. And then big open mouth, big sharp teeth, ooh again right there. And then we feel that F or V right there again. So super clear in there. Now let me go over a few questions here. You have any parts of the character you look out for tracking and spacing? Usually when you're tracking and spacing, or tracking your arcs and spacing, you're looking for the core of the character. So for example, the hips, the chest, the center of the head, these kind of big masses, because if the head itself is not moving in a nice arc, you're going to kind of feel that. If the hips are not moving in a nice arc, you're going to feel that. But on top of that, the next thing you really want to look for is hotspots. Hotspots on a character are areas that our eyes naturally look towards. So there's a whole bunch of different things. It can be points. So points of things. So if I have my finger like this, naturally we want to look at that, at the tip of the finger. So I will want to make sure that the arc of the tip of the finger is super clear. I also want to track the wrist and all of that, but that point is going to be much more important. The nose tends to be a hot spot because it kind of sticks out from our face. So it's very easy to follow and notice when something's off. So tracking the tip of the nose is usually really good. If your character's holding something like a pen, that becomes a hot spot. So you'll want to track that. Another hotspot is bright spots. So for example, you'll notice that there's this little silver bit on my headphones here. That would be a hotspot if it was a little bit bigger. Right now, it kind of gets lost in my hair, so it's not too bad. But if this was a little shinier, a little bit bigger, I would want to track that because the audience might end up looking here. So on this character, for example, a hotspot could be her badge right there, or the top of her hat right here. So tracking those points, and you don't have to track them perfectly, but making sure that there's not something weird going on there is going to be very important. Now, with her hat, it's not going to be too bad because it's following the motion of her head for the most part. So it's not going to be doing something extra. But if you have also patterns on your clothing. So, for example, a good example of this is if you've seen Surf's Up. The penguins in that film have these very cool tattoo-esque patterns on their feathers. And a lot of those penguins, because of the very specific patterns, it would create hotspots that the audience would just naturally look at. So they had to track those points of the body to make sure that as the body is moving, these points are not doing anything weird or drawing the attention in an odd way. So yeah, it's usually the center masses and then hotspots, areas that the audience will tend to look at. Okay, so coming through here, let's go to the next shot. I do want to mention, actually, while we're here, hand poses. The hand poses in this film are beautiful. Look at that hand pose. It is gorgeous. They're pushing the spacing, even though she's got like a brick for her hand, her fingers are super thick. They are pushing that spacing beautifully, really exaggerating the poses. I love this moment here. We've got this anticipation. You can feel her body lead the action down, kind of anticipate a little bit. It's kind of helping with the car going out that way as well. She opens her jaw, which kind of is the beginning of the lunge forward. And as she lunges forward, we feel the whole car rocking. This is sympathetic action. She's doing something and we're feeling that motion. Usually sympathetic action, we talk about it in the body itself. Like if I lift my arm here, it's going to affect the other side of my body. It also affects elements outside our body, in this case, like the car. But as she jumps here, we feel her head lead the action. You can actually see her length, her neck lengthening right here, ever so slightly. So you can feel that head lead the action as she lunges forward. Look at that exaggerated spacing. The hand is just barely leaving, boop, whoom, right up there, and you've got these nice speed lines. And these speed lines, do I have the scene in here? No, I don't. A lot of these speed lines are just drawn in using like a grease pencil tool. There's nothing special about these in the sense of being this super technical, amazing technology. There was a scene here, and I wish I had actually saved it to show everyone, where Snake is dropping down, and you can see multiples of his head as he drops down. And the multiples weren't duplicated geometry. They weren't some fancy tool. It was literally the animator just went in and drew Snake's head with a grease pencil tool, and it looked drawn. It was hand drawn. That's it. They got the colors to match somewhat closely, and that was it. And it was awesome. It was so cool to see. I don't know why I didn't save it. Now, as she lunges here, once again, we get this hold. This hold wouldn't really happen in real life. Like, they would lunge forward, and the energy would just keep them going boom, forward right through there. But we can add this hold. It's, again, that hang time, that little bit of, you think about it like bullet time in the Matrix, or like this exaggerated hang time where you'd have an action movie and they're jumping from one rooftop to the other, and in the middle of the jump they slow it down to make it more cinematic, that kind of boom and then down. That's what they're doing here in this motion, and it makes it more dramatic. We can see it more clearly, and you get this beautiful pose, great silhouette. And then once again, spacing wise, look how fast it comes in. We feel a little bit of motion right here, and then big smear coming through right there, slam down. And I love how she has a bandage on her finger. It's just a nice little character trait. They don't have to put that in, but it adds so much. Really nice. Let's actually play it at speed here, so we're actually getting the right frame rate. So good. I love this. Now, I was talking about holds before, and we've talked about holds in terms of exaggerating your motion and your hang time and all of that stuff. But another very important hold, and this is especially true for anyone in animation, well, honestly, for everyone who's an animator, but for those of you in Animation Mentor, not just Animation Mentor, anyone, you need to make sure that your characters have time to think and register when something happens. You need to have them thinking. So right here, for example, these characters are looking forward. They do not know that something's about to happen yet. Now, she hits the car, it rocks them all, and they turn to look at her. They do not react right away. They don't just go, what, and then go back in shock. They turn, and you can see it with Snake. He finishes his head turn right here, 406. And then they react. So let's actually use Wolf here because he's kind of the main character. So 406, he's turned enough that he can see her. And then he only reacts here at 409. They're giving about 3 frames for him to pause before reacting. This is very, very important. If you do not have that, things are not going to read clearly, the characters are going to feel like they're acting, like it's all fake. You need to give that time for characters to just sit and ponder. And then once again, they hold right here at the end, which just gives us this really nice freeze frame of their reaction. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention, just very, they wanted you to see their eyes, so they flipped all their glasses off. Yeah, all their glasses fall off so you can see their expressions very clearly, which is just a great little touch there. Compositionally, this is also really nice where you have these characters and they fill the screen. I wish there was a halfway point here, but if you cut the scene in about half, you have the characters and you'll see that they're pretty much evenly spaced from there to there. All of them right in the center. You can see Snake, Piranha, they're right on that center line. Wolf is just slightly ahead. Everyone's kind of evenly distributed. Once the chief comes in here and lands, if we take that center line once again, and it's about, there it is, here, look at how they've split the scene. You've got Chief on screen left, and all the other characters, at least their eyes, are on screen right now. And it creates this nice triangular shape. If you actually look at their eyes, you can draw a line through their eyes like that. So it keeps our focus very clear. We're not having to look between all the different characters. That's just really, really well done. And for anyone who doesn't know about this concept, essentially by having the screen split in the middle and then we have characters kind of pushed on one side or the other, it's a power dynamic. The more characters are pushed off to the side of the screen, the less powerful they are. The more they're in towards the center, the more powerful they are. So here, by pushing all of the characters from where they were very close to the center and then pushing them all out to the side, it makes them feel weaker. And weaker doesn't mean like physically weak, but suddenly they are being attacked. They don't know what's happening. They are shocked. They are not in a position of strength in this moment. But then, as I'm going to talk about this scene in just a second here because I love this scene. As we go into the next scene here, look what happens. We have Shark, who goes from, once again, that center line, which is right around here. He goes from this being on the screen, right? And now he's pushing into her space. And look at her, how much she's taking up of the screen here. Very little. So suddenly, she was very kind of in their face, taking over the scene. And now she's losing ground. They're not scared of her. And you can kind of see it as they all just kind of stop being afraid. And at this point, like, once again, they're just taking up the whole frame there, where she's nudged out to the side. It's so good. I love this so much. That cherry looks so good. Like right here, look at that, the shine on that cherry. Oh. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that composition right there. So this scene is one of those scenes, honestly, this is right near the beginning of the film. As we were watching this film, Cameron and I, the whole time we were watching this, like, at this point, there were like at least 15 moments where we looked at each other and was like, yeah, this is really good. And then this moment happened, and it was just so funny to us because it's so, what's the right word? You can only do this in a cartoon. You've got a character here who's hanging between the two cars, only hooked on with her feet, and she literally pulls another car right up next to the other. It is wonderful. Whoever came up with that idea there, like, whoever storyboarded, wrote it, whatever, genius. I love it. And then whoever animated it did an amazing job here. So what I love, first of all, is how it starts with the character in this kind of C curve right here, or we'll call it a reverse C for now. So they're in this reverse C curve, nice and stretched out, hang between the cars. And as she pulls, you'll notice that we feel the chest actually move first. So she anticipates, she moves down, her chest expands right here. She's starting to use the muscles of her body to start to pull, and they're actually showing that here by having her expand. We feel the arms tightening right here, the elbows starting to bend, and then as she bends, it's moving through her body. So if you kind of watch here, you'll notice that the most motion, let's clear this out here, is happening right here. And then as it goes through, it moves there, there, and then there, down into the hips. See that? It's almost like there's this wave moving through her body. Starts with the chest, rolls down to the hips, and then pauses a little bit here before we reverse again. So we're reversing here, whoop, from that original curve right here. Reverse, hold, the arms pull in, and then reverse again. This time starting with the hips and then into the chest. So they're reversing it where it was chest into hips. Now it's hip into chest. It makes it more dynamic. It's not just repeating the same action over and over. And look how far they're pushing this pose. Legs super straight. Bend right down in there. It's so good. I love Wolf here. Just leaning out the window. Everyone's just like pulled way out there. It's so good. Oh, I love this scene. It is just fantastic. But let's see, there was something else I wanted to mention here. Oh yeah. So the other thing I love about this is the fact that the car itself also reacts in this beautiful way. So we talked about the tires before. If you watch this here, as she's pulling the car, it's not just tilting the whole car evenly. As the body of the car tilts, the tires stay straight. And then as she really pulls, you get this nice contrast. It's feeling like the car is kind of crunching up a little bit. It's showing a lot of pressure in here versus just sliding the car over. The other thing I love about it is that the car doesn't move in one just smooth motion. It's going in bursts. So it goes in, in, in. So you can see it right here. In, in, in. And as it's doing that, because it's a car and it's got wheels and it's trying to move, you'll notice that it's waving as well. So it tilts right here. She pulls it in, and then the car wants to pull away here. You can see it, the headlights kind of pulling back the other way. She pulls it in again, and then the car does the same thing. It tries to pull back, pulls in again, pulls back. We can feel this physicality, this pull and contrast between her and the car. It's not just sliding it over like it's a chair or something like that. It is a wonderful moment of physicality here. And they do it so, so well. Did they also flatten the tires while she does this? It kind of does look like they flattened them a little bit. It kind of feels like they're starting to bulge slightly right there. It could just be an optical illusion. It's hard to say. Let's see. Trying to catch up with the chat here. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. What is the difference between a hold and hang time? So, technically, they're very similar. For me, a hold is when you have a character come to a stop or have a slight pause. Hang time is when something is moving through the air, typically moving through the air, and we're adding technically it's a hold, but we are having it slow down in midair in a moment that wouldn't really be usually physically possible. Or I shouldn't say that. It's adding more time in the air so that it feels more varied. So for example, with a bouncing ball, it goes up, holds, hang time, and then comes down. It is a form of hold. It is a moving hold, but I don't like classifying it as a hold because as the ball bounces through the air, it's not holding. It's not stopping itself. There's no way it can stop itself. It's just moving through the air. Whereas a hold, typically when we think about it, it's like, if I do this, I can hold this pose and I can stay in it. So that's usually my distinction. Is a hang time is something that it's not technically possible to hold in that moment, but we can exaggerate it to make it feel better. I hope that makes sense. I don't feel like I was super clear on that. But yeah, it's technically they're the same thing. Just a very slight distinction. So yeah, I plan on getting the Blu-ray of The Bad Guys. Would you be interested in perhaps doing a movie palooza of it? I've been wanting to do movie paloozas again, bring those back. Unfortunately, there's no platform that I can do them on. That would work really good. It would be nice to do those again someday. I like doing those in the past. For anyone who doesn't know, movie paloozas were a type of Q&A that we would do at AM where we would all get together and watch a film together. And it was a lot of fun. The problem is the lag often made it not super practical to watch, especially for people watching it for the first time. Let's see. How did they make the texture for their eyes? It looks the same as 2D eyes. Essentially, it's just a 2D shader. Or a shader that doesn't have much shading to it. So it's just a flat color, essentially. But it's still a CGI. C-G-E-Y-E-I. So it's really just a material that has a very flat feel to it. Yeah, exactly. C-G-I-E-Y-E. Let's see. Catching up. Did they also flatten the tires? Yes, I got that. Hey, Yeti Kong, how's it going? So are they moving the background for that shot, or think they're going forward in space? That's hard to say. I would assume that they're moving the background, personally. Specifically because it would make animation a whole lot easier. If you're trying to animate this and your camera is moving and the cars are moving and everything is moving with the scene, what's going to end up happening is that when you're trying to frame by frame this, you're going to move one frame and the car is going to past the camera. And then you have to move the camera, your work cam, and then you're again trying to track your arcs, animate things, and then you go to the next frame, and it's out of frame again. It's very hard. If you have the cars and the main camera, the shot camera, staying still and the background's just moving, all you have to do is animate those vehicles kind of going side to side and you're done. So that would be the way I would probably approach this. I can't say that they did that for sure or not. The other way that I would potentially approach this, if I did need the cars to move in the end, is I would do a rough pass of the cars moving forward with the camera moving forward, and then I would add an animation layer on the whole scene that would essentially negate that motion. So essentially the cars are moving forward. I add the animation layer. It keeps the cars still and makes the background move backwards. And then when I'm done all my animation, I can turn off the animation layer. Suddenly everything goes forward again and it's all animated. So it's, Yeah, there's different ways you could approach it. And none of them are wrong. It's just whatever's going to be easiest for that moment. It's funny to see also all the policemen in the background outside the car windows. Yeah, they are amazing to look at. Let's see. Which character was your favorite in the film? Ooh, that's a good question. I would probably say it's between the top 4 would probably be Wolf, Snake, the Chief, and Diane, the mayor. Those would be my top 4. I also really like the villain, but top 4 would be those ones. My absolute favorite, I would probably say Wolf, just because there's more of him, honestly. But yeah, probably Wolf or Snake, one of those two. But it's like really close between all 4 of them. I really like all of the characters. Okay. Now, let's see. What else do I want to talk about here? Okay. And what time is it? Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about this scene right here. And then I want to do a little bit of a talk on lip sync. And then depending on how much time we have, we'll see if we go to another scene, because I don't have that much time today to go over. So, and if anyone else has questions, definitely feel free to keep asking. So with this scene, we've got the Chief here, and she has to avoid a bus, which is just an awesome scene in general. And what I love about this is when you first look at it, it's very complex. She jumps out, her arms wave through the air, she kind of leans in on the car, falls out of it, runs back, jumps in. It's crazy, the amount of stuff that they do in a very short amount of time. But if you break it down, it is a concept in animation of reactions. And this is something that you typically tend to see a lot in fight scenes. And it's a good way of choreographing a shot, or at least coming up with ideas in a shot. And it's really just what happens next. And it's an exercise that I recommend people try. Of instead of trying to plan out every single action in the very moment, like, okay, I need to plan out this shot. She's going to dodge a bus, and I'm just gonna put it down, write it down as a whole right away. That's really hard, because what the heck do I do? There's so many choices that I can do. Well, one way to approach it is you can think of it like a straight ahead method. You just start from the beginning and then figure out what is the character going to do. So here, she's got to dodge the bus. So she's going to have to push back to the other car. Well, knowing that means that we have to have an anticipation here. She comes in towards the camera before pushing away. Well, that's pretty simple. Now, as she pushes away, she can hold right here. And what I love here is actually when you look at it, she is actually airborne between both cars. Her feet are off the other police car. She is just free falling right here before the police car actually drives in towards her. But we can think, okay, she has to push away, but I want to make it more interesting. Okay, well, what if she just kind of flails in the air for a little bit? Okay, we do that. Now, she has to land on the car. What happens next? What if she sucks in her gut and tries to dodge the bus? You can just think of one step at a time and build off of these. You don't have to try and come up with all of it all at once. I'm not saying that's how the animator did this. Honestly, there's a lot of different methods that could have been done. It could have been storyboarded this way, all sorts of things. But as you're trying to think about this, try to think of it as reactions. Now, I mentioned fight scenes. Fight scenes are a little bit easier to think about in this sense, is what's going to happen next? So for example, let's say in the fight scene, it starts off with someone who's about to punch me. So fist is coming in towards my face. What do I do next? Do I take the punch and just get hit in the head? Do I dodge? Do I deflect? We have that choice. We can think, okay, what is going to happen in this next moment? Okay, I deflect. What's going to happen next? Do I retaliate? Do I pull away? Do I try to grab their arm with the arm that I deflected with? We're now in this new pose, this new position, and we have a new set of possibilities that we can do. Let's say I punch back. Okay, what happens next? The other person is going to have to react. What do they do? Do they deflect? Do they dodge? Do they grab my fist? I can start to do this and build a choreography based on just what was going to happen next. And then if I review it and go, okay, something wasn't super interesting here in the middle, we go back to that point, choose something else. It's a more kind of free-form way of planning a shot versus, especially like a fight scene, trying to have everything mapped out and planned kind of from an overview level. That can be very, very hard. Now, once again, I'm not saying that this is how they planned this shot, but when you are doing something that's like this complex, it can be kind of helpful as a tool. I love how she drops out of the car here and just running next to it. And one thing that I didn't notice when I first watched it is that when I first watched it, I thought she jumped back into the car herself. But if you actually watch that, she's running next to it. And, Fraukus, yes, the smears, they are so good. We're going to talk about those in just a second here. But as she runs through, she's running. And then what's happening is that the car skids out of control, knocks her. Like, look at that. She's smushed into the car right there, bounces off, and then the car almost flips, flings her into the air. This is where you get that nice hang time, exaggerated hang time right through there. She grabs on and pulls herself in. That is awesome. So this is, again, one is that thing of just what happens next. She's running beside the car. Well, what if it hits her? Okay, it hits her. What happens next? It flips her in the air. What happens next? She grabs on and pulls herself in. And then gains control again. It's just so good. It's so chaotic. So good. But let's see. Let's look at the smears here. So I was talking about it before, how they've got a lot of smears and really cool techniques in this. But if you break it down, it's actually very simple. You'll have like speed lines like these, which these are just part of the background elements. These are pretty simple. But then right here, you'll have multiples where you have like the hand here and they just draw in another hand right there. And you'll notice that it's very simple. It's one flat color that's just like a random value that they picked from the hand. Like if I was to use the eyedropper tool, it's probably like right around here. And then they just drew in a hand. That's it. Use the grease pencil tool, draw it in. I could essentially do the same thing. Like if I took that skin color there, I could, let's delete this here. I could add another bit to it right there if I wanted to. Done. Look at that. The lines are so smudgy and imperfect. Look at that. You can see let's change the color here. It's like they didn't quite finish that line correctly right there. And that's perfect. That's not a bad thing. Speed lines should not be perfect. The fact that they are so chaotic, like right here, you can see that there's a break in that line. That's what makes them read even better and more frantic. Like, look at that. All smeary. It makes it more interesting to look at. This is just a zigzag. You can see it right there. It's just zigzag right through. And a lot of times this, I'm assuming, is probably just traced where they moved the hand into place, traced it with the grease pencil tool, and then moved the hand. It might not be that, but for me, that's the way I would probably approach it, is just put the hand there, trace over it, move it out of the way. There you go. You've got a nice smear frame and multiple right there. And this is all stuff that you could do in the default Maya. You don't need any special tools, just the default grease pencil tool. So good. And this goes for the next lines right here. Now, as she's running, you'll notice that her feet have the same thing. These swoop lines right there. Once again, just the grease pencil tool and just drew some simple lines right through there. The speed of her legs there is crazy. She's just going, it's a 2-frame run cycle. So you've got the extended here. There's the passing, contact, passing, contact, passing, contact, passing, contact, all the way through. It's amazing how they make that read so clearly. Now, what makes it read clearly is the fact that her body isn't moving. It's the Marvin the Martian type run. If anyone's ever seen Marvin the Martian from old Warner Brothers cartoon, he's a little alien with a big helmet. When he would walk, his body wouldn't move and his legs would just kind of become a smear underneath him and just go kind of like Sonic the Hedgehog, I guess you could say. Sonic's another good example. Sonic's legs, they just become a blur as he runs, but his body doesn't move very much. He just kind of stays in that one like tight pose. And it makes it read clearly because it gives our eyes something to focus on. If the arms were doing the same thing and the whole body was like doing this as it's going and the head is shaking back and forth, there's no way you're going to read anything on 2 frames. But because her body is staying still here, relatively, compared to the legs, it reads very nice and clear. Let's see, do frantic movements like that work without motion blur or not as good? Talking about how she is running next to the car. If you had no motion blur, no smear frames, no lines, no nothing, it wouldn't read very well because visually it would just pop from one spot to the next. Essentially, you would have, let's say, like a pose here. Let's turn this on, ghosting. Then the next frame, the legs would be coming through like that. And then the next frame, it would go back to the other side here. And then repeat. So if I do that here, and if I do that, for example, it's not going to read well because we don't get a sense of motion. It just kind of flickers on screen. So to make it read correctly, we don't need motion blur, not the camera motion blur. We could do this with 2D techniques. And think of it like 2D animation, Marvin the Martian. There was no motion blur. It was all just speed lines and smears. So for example, here, as the character kicks through, we can add a smear kind of right here, some sort of line. The other foot could have maybe a smear right there, kind of directing the eye. Right here, we could maybe add a multiple right there, along with I don't know, I keep drawing an arrow. A line right there. And suddenly that helps to create that feeling of motion just a little bit more. And leads the eye, because now as the foot goes back the other way, let's say we go into this pose here, we can kind of create some speed lines that arc through and lead our eye and kind of finish the arcs that are happening right there. So like that. I hope that makes sense. So you don't necessarily need motion blur. You just need something to connect the audience's eye. And that could be motion blur, it could be speed lines, it could be multiples, it could be smears, any of those things. Okay. I love how the car just skids on the two tires right there. So good. And they do such a good job with the suspension system. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about here is the lip sync. And we're going to talk about this. I've actually got quite a few more clips. If people are interested, we could do another Bad Guys analysis next week. If people are interested and want to see more, where we can do a more deep dive in a lot of dialogue, because I've got some scenes here with some really good dialogue and good character acting. So we could do that. But I do want to cover it just a little bit today, just kind of since we talked about spacing and all of that good stuff. So let me actually, I'm just going to set the range here so we can just look at this section right through here. Okay. And let me see. Figure out why it's... Oh, interesting. It is playing. Has the audio been playing for all of you this whole time? I'm assuming yes. Interesting. I'm sorry if it was annoying with the music. I didn't realize that it was playing through. On my system, for some reason, it's not playing any audio. There we go. Now it's playing audio. I had to restart my audio engine there. Oops. So let me actually mute the music so we can actually... let me mute that so we can hear the audio a little better. Let me know if it's too quiet and we'll tone it up for the dialogue. Oop, and that's playing the music again. Okay, was that too low, or was that clear enough to hear the dialogue? Let's see, and I'll play it again one more time. Okay, cool. So it was good for me? Okay, awesome. I'm assuming it was good for everyone. Cool. A little higher? Okay, let me play it one more time. We'll raise the volume. I just have to remember where. Okay. So let me make sure I don't blow out everyone's eardrums here, and we'll play it a couple more times with a little higher volume and then go back to what we had.
Excuse me, Chief. What? Drop that thing out of my face before Excuse me, Chief. What? Drop that thing out of my face before Excuse me, Chief. What?
So good. Okay. So, the dialogue. It is very beautiful to look at. When you look at their lip sync, it is amazing. It is fun. It is interesting. A big part of that is just the shapes that they do. The mouth shapes are nice and round. It's not natural. Our mouths do not do that in real life, but this is a very cartoony way of drawing mouths. They really push the teeth. Like, look at how big these teeth are. Super big and cartoony. They're not afraid to change the teeth style. Like when she goes, what? Suddenly she's got like super sharp shark teeth compared to the round little teeth there. And they just switch the visibility on and off. So just a note here for anyone who's worried about animating teeth in your shots, and I shouldn't move the teeth because that's not what happens in real life. They're literally switching teeth and it feels great. It's okay to move the teeth around. As long as you don't notice the teeth sliding around in the mouth, that's the only important thing. So, in terms of the dialogue, how do they make the dialogue feel so good and read so well? Well, it's really a mixture of two main things with a lot of little things in between. Good poses. They are making sure to hit their important poses. So these are things like ooh shapes, when the mouth has to go in, ooh. Making sure, like right here, listen to the dialogue again. Get that thing out of my face. So we've got get that thing right here. So let's see. Get that thing right there. You can see that TH right there. The th sound. They're exaggerating that, making it super clear. Thing. Ow. Here's the kind of ow shape. Or sorry. Out of my. Here's the M. Even without like hearing the dialogue, we can see what's happening. And then F, face. So another very important mouth shape, F's and V's. They're really pushing it. You can see the teeth pressing into the lip. And you can actually see, if you look at it, the lip is just cutting right through the teeth. There's a geometry intersection right here. There's even a geometry pinch that's happening ever so slightly right here. That's fine. At speed, you're not going to notice these little pinches and whatnot, but it's going to read so much better because of it. You can even feel like there's a little geometry clipping right here between the tooth and the lip. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It makes it feel like there's more pressure against the tooth with the lip. And then here we have fei, and then we're missing the S because it happens on this one here. So the S, fei, S, which is more of an S sound, happens here. But we get A right there. So they are making sure to hit those core shapes. M's, F, TH, the ooh, or the ow, I should say, right here. With those in place, the next thing they do is just move super fast between them. That's really it. And exaggerate some of the larger exaggerations. So, for example, get that here's the TH, thing, A. They're opening it up because we had the mouth closed. So they're creating that contrast, thing, right in here. And then once again, contrasting, ow, closing it and into the M, out of my. But they're not doing every single letter in here. So for example, out, they're not going out of the my face. It's out of my. It's very fast. Out of my face. So that thing, ow of my. It's ow m, out of my face. They're getting rid of the T of the OF of. So it's out of my face. So they're going ow right there, M, and they're cutting the rest right here. Because she's speaking really fast, we don't need all of this. If your characters are speaking fast, you don't have to hit every single shape, especially if we barely hear it anyway. So they're focusing on the core shapes. From there, they are moving very quickly through the shapes. And let's actually bring some music back because it's quiet now. So they're moving very, very fast between the shapes. If we look at the spacing, so here's the TH, that ing. So they're going from TH to ing right here. And if we look at the mouth shape, we'll look at the corner here. Let's tone this down a little bit, maybe 6 frames. So we've got the corner right here. It's starting to move out, and you'll notice that it's moving out in an arc. It's not just going in a straight line. It moves down first and then pops up. But look at that spacing right here. Notice how it moves? Slight ease out. Very fast, holds. And there's no middle pose. If we look at the two extremes here, the middle would be right here. It skips the middle. So it moves in an arc. You can actually see the shape moving in an arc right there. Just those lines there. Moves an arc very quickly. Holds, 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 holds. Look at the mouth as it opens up. We get that lip. Ease, ease. Boom. Open. And then hold. And then boom. Close again. Close. And then it holds. Right here. M. M. Notice how the M doesn't stay still. It's closed, but it's not just M and it pops open. It's pressing in, flattens out, and then widens out. So the mouth is doing an arc this way. It's going in and then out. Presses out, pops open. Thing out of so this is fey out of my. The my is tight, my face. So once again, opens up very fast, 1 frame. And then the F, same thing, super wide, wide, boom, F. And then they hold, and then once again, boom, fast. Look how fast that goes. We get 1 frame of the mouth kind of widening out right here before pops open and then eases. So this goes back to the very first thing that we were talking about on this. Spacing, especially for mouth motions, should never be slow and should never just be a simple ease in and out, something like that. No. If your lip sync is like that, more than likely you're just not going to have good lip sync. It's going to be very boring, very flat. It's going to be ugly. Instead, lip sync is very fast. Most often you can get away with mouth shapes that move within 3 or 4 frames. So you have frame 1 here, for example, and then probably around frame 4 or 5 here. We'll say 5 for now. So very fast. And then the spacing of that is going to be a big E. So that's frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, then frame 5. And then you'd ease that in a little bit if you need to. Something like that. So lip sync is extremely fast, and you very rarely hit the middle pose. You skip the middle and favor one side more than the other. And if you do that, you get very clear lip sync. So by simplifying the shapes and not having to hit every single sound, just the important ones, and then the ones in between that you can hit if you have the time for it, you get some very clear lip sync. You mean add an overshoot for a couple of frames? Either an overshoot or a settle on ease in. It really depends. Sometimes it'll ease and just kind of hold, moving hold. Other times it'll overshoot. Depends on what kind of expression it is. If it's kind of a pop, like pop, You'll sometimes overshoot and come in. More often, it's kind of a little bit of an ease. And you'll see even him, like when he goes through here, look how fast his mouth corner right here moves. So it comes down, down, a little bit of an ease, boom, boom, in, right there. Very fast. 1, 2, 3, 4 frames of movement. And then right here, even faster, it goes, and now it's starting to move back, pop, right in there. And when he opens his mouth, we feel the little bit of the lip move, to get a teeny tiny bit right there, and then pop open and hold. So they're not freezing, there's moving holds, everything's moving in an arc, and they move very quickly when they do move. And very clear mouth shapes. Like right here, you can really see that F or V shape right there. Very clear ooh. Look at that. Breaking the silhouette. If your character is at a 3/4 angle or side view, try to break the silhouette with your oohs. It really makes a big difference. And look at that. In one frame, we go all the way out here. And then as she closes her mouth, same thing. So it's really open there. Right here, ease in. Look at that ease right there. And here you can see an overshoot. As she clamps her mouth, it pushes the outsides out, the squash pose essentially, and then comes back in right here. Even here, very fast. We get a little change right here. It speeds up a little bit right there. Closed. And then right into that small mouth there. So when you're doing lip sync, try to keep it simple. Honestly, it's trying to go for more poses and more in-betweens and trying to really make it smooth. That just makes it look weird. It should look almost like it's in step mode with just very simple breakdowns. And when I say simple, it doesn't mean just straight lines. No, you want arcs, you want to push your spacing, but it should really only be 3 or 4 frames at most. Sometimes even just 1 frame. Like you could see some of those mouth shapes. There was like pose, 1 frame where it's a little ease, and then it's into the next pose. Done. And it reads super clearly. As long as your poses are strong and your spacing is good, usually your lip sync will be pretty solid.